Marco, so today it's an interesting topic, leadership levels. What do you think we're going to talk about today?
So when I thought about the topic, I had like lots and lots of ideas. Leadership levels could be something like hierarchy. I hope we will talk about
hierarchy is important.
Like career paths and stuff like this.
Yeah,
could be part of it. I like to talk about expectations. Like when we're having like different roles, then I would like to connect them to expectations. I want to talk about expectations. And I think we're going to talk about books again.
Yeah, books. There's one book that we have to mention multiple times. I think it's still a secret. Not many people know about this, but it's a very good book.
Yeah, you recommended it to me. I liked it a lot.
Yes, and someone recommended it to me. I don't know who this was, but we're going to discuss this in depth. And it is so amazing.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
Last time we talked about team structures.
Team structures. I vaguely remember that topic.
Today, I would like to talk about team leadership or leadership in general, at least for software engineering.
Yes, and if you want to talk about this, I will follow, of course, and that's leadership. I also want to talk about this, to be honest, and it's a super interesting topic. Not many heads and companies are aware how you can structure the levels, what the individual levels mean, and so I think it's worth investigating this.
I want to talk to you about this because you were recommending a really interesting book to me.
Yes.
Do you remember? I know you recommend a lot of books to me.
It's Harry Potter or something.
More like a business-related book. It has to do
42 with in a Towel. Also not okay.
Very good book.
It might have been the Leadership Pipeline, right?
It's the Leadership Pipeline. You recommended it to me. I read it. I even got the audiobook so I can listen to it when I'm traveling, and I really liked it. Can you tell us again what's inside?
What's inside? So for me, how did I someone recommended the book to me, and I can't remember who this was. So please speak up if you are the person. But for whatever reason, at some point, I think 10 or 15 years ago, this book has been written, and at some point I bought it. And it was a revelation for me. And why was it a revelation? Because I have to deal often with organizations, so tech organizations. And for these tech organizations, it's not clear what is a team lead, what is a head of, what are responsibilities of head offs. Or for me, if you have to coach and develop leaders, you have to be crystal clear about you are now a team lead. These are your responsibilities. If you want to make your next career move and want to work as a director, leading multiple teams, your responsibilities, they will change and your work style will change. And if you are not crystal clear about this, you can coach people. And as an organization, if you didn't write this down properly, you cannot develop the organization properly, which is a huge problem because then you get stuck. And that's one of the few books that really talks about this, about the different levels and what they mean. So, and they are using, of course, it depends how large your organization is. You will have different levels. So if you're just a team of 5 people, then you don't need any levels, right? So everyone is kind of equal and you know what's going on. You maybe have a founder if it's a startup, that's fine. But at some point, you need some kind of hierarchy to lead the pack. And then you will establish team leads. And that's maybe the first level that you will see. You will then discover you have individual contributors. That's also a very interesting concept. Individual contributors are, in simple terms, your engineers doing the work, very important. You will have team leads. Team leads, of course, do the work, but they have to do other work as well, not only writing code or engineering. It's about leading, and that's leadership. You have to do the one-on-ones. You have to develop, you have to support your team, you have to create a wonderful team. You also have to deal with underperformance. You have to deal maybe with budgets. And you have to carefully balance, as a team lead, you have to carefully balance the amount of time you're spending with I'm writing code versus I'm leading people. And if you as a team lead are writing code for 100% of the time, you will fail miserably, unfortunately, because you don't lead people and your team will miss the point. And that's an insight you will have. And so this is individual contributors versus leadership levels or management levels. And if you go up the ladder, and it's also what I've experienced, you will encounter CTOs that are supposedly leading 40, 50, 60, 70 engineers. They're still writing code 70 or 80% of their time. And if you look down below what's happening on the director level or on the team lead level, you will see that none of the team leads gets proper leadership, proper direction, and all this leadership work is missing. So rule of thumb, of course, is if you're a CTO, if you're leading more than, let's say, 10, 20 people, you likely will not write code anymore. You will have the urge, especially if you're starting. Most of the managers are starting as engineers. You will love engineering, but you have to resist this urge to write code.
Are you still writing code?
I'm of course still writing code.
At home?
I'm guilty, of course. But for the assignments, when I'm assigned as, let's say, fractional CTO or interim CTO, I don't write code. And that's the clear message. That's one thing. And even I also might not work on the architecture or support with the architecture. This is someone else's duty. And if the person doesn't exist, I have to build or create that person or hire that person. But coming back to these leadership levels, you will see you have individual contributors. You have then the first leadership level, which is likely some kind of team lead, leading individual contributors, first level. Above that person, you might encounter kind of directors or heads or whatever.
Yeah.
They won't lead individual contributors. They will lead leaders. So leaders of leaders. Above that, you will have, it depends on the size of your organization, but then you will encounter leaders of a either functional unit or business unit. So you are responsible for one part of the business in technical terms. So you are the CTO or the SVP or the VP. And your job and your role will change on each level, and you have to be very aware what the changes are. It's a very long answer, and I hope this is kind of in the right direction. But this is one of the few books that is talking about this.
Yeah.
It's a revelation. And whenever I encounter someone that's working too much, like as a CTO that's working too much on writing code, and I still have to support them and I have to still do the form scripts, I just give that book to that person, and it's a revelation for any CTO that still writes code.
Let's unpack that, because we don't want to only talk about that book, but I think the book contains a lot of wisdom and experience from my perspective. I have the feeling that the authors really have been there, done that, and extracted it into the book. So I can understand your enthusiasm because I can feel it myself. But let's start at the very beginning, like what you said. Like you have the individual contributors. They're also leading, but they're only leading themselves, like in the sense of they're organizing their own work. Like their universe is the work that they individually need to do. That's why they're called individual contributors. And they're obviously collaborating inside a team with other individual contributors. And then there's a first leadership level on top, which you called team lead. And you already said something where I was like, yeah, I've seen this, I agree with you, but I don't know if everyone does that. And you said, like, if you're a team lead, you cannot be coding anymore 100% of your time, because then maybe you will become, let's say it loud, a shitty team lead. But also you were assuming that a team lead will still code, but you didn't say how much, 50%, 60%, 20%, how much coding should a team lead do? Should a team lead actually code at all on this low level already?
Well, it depends, of course. That's what I keep on saying. But it's of course it's true. It depends, and it depends on a few criteria. One of the criteria is how mature is your team actually. So if you have a very young, enthusiastic team, everyone came together, new juniors, then you have to coach them. You have to coach them how to work together, get the stories properly set up, collaborations with the product management team, and you have to coach them. You also have to hire if the team wants to grow. You have to maintain the budget maybe, and you have to work very, very closely. So you will have to spend a lot of time in the area of people management. So if you have this young, enthusiastic team and you do 100% of coding, maybe even on your own, you're doing it wrong. So the needle then goes to, hey, you have to do a lot of people management. If the team is an old team, you know everyone for the last 10 years, so 20 years, it's working very well, then you can, of course, do a lot more coding, a lot more engineering, and that's why it depends. But you have to be very aware of that. And
so it's a spectrum. It could be like anything from 10 to 90%, but you
Exactly.
wouldn't go for the extremes of 0% or 100%.
Yeah, and also if you're leading a team lead, so if you're in a director position, so that you are leading leaders, leading this team lead, you also have to coach the team lead and be very, very aware of the fact that it's a continuum, and you have to be very careful that that person spends enough time with people management. And it also goes the other way around. So if you expect a team lead to contribute maybe 70, 80, 90%, then that's likely also wrong, especially when this team lead does a lot of coordination between other teams or architecture setups when it goes to collaborations and so on. So it really depends. And that's also one of the failure modes. So in terms of if you're like a classical manager, everyone should work and contribute, then you would say, okay, team leads, that's just another resource that should contribute 100% of his or her time writing code, 100%, right? So that's 100% writing code. And of course, that's something you shouldn't do.
Why not?
In terms of budgeting, so in terms of resource allocation budgeting, usually we take out, if it's in the past, we only budget for the engineers and not for the team leads.
Yeah.
So if the team leads, of course, contribute, that's fine, but we don't expect them to contribute. But it's a continuum.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where it breaks down. And if you expect a team lead to contribute 100% of the time plus people management, then you have those classical cases where people just burn out. It's just too much to do. There's so many personal problems, and you have to make sure that the team works. It's like a football coach or soccer coach also doesn't play on the field, right? The job is just completely different, and that's the same here. You wouldn't expect like a football coach to play on the field.
And you're talking now about the so-called team lead. Let's say that we have this structure. There is a team, and you have the individual contributors in there. It's a cross-functional team or whatever. Like, let's say all of this exists, and we're talking about leadership. And we went into the team lead direction, which, from my perspective, the way how I understood what you're describing is a managerial, like organizational role.
Yeah.
What about the technical leadership? Is this also done by the team lead?
Oh, that's very interesting. Actually, team lead is there. Okay. Now it gets really interesting because I know you are doing this differently. What I've seen in the past and what I've worked with in the past was, of course, there are different ways how you can be successful. So there are different terms we're talking about. So one is team lead, another term might be engineering manager, a third term might be tech lead, right? So I think this is, and plus many others that companies tend to invent. So team lead is usually the sole leader of a team. That's the classical perception when you're talking to marketing teams or to finance teams or whatever, it's the team lead. For engineering teams, I think that's different. You usually should have two leaders of the teams. You should have the product manager, and you should have the team lead or the engineering manager.
Mm-hmm.
So a team lead or engineering manager, just different terms for the same thing, in my opinion, should always lead alongside and together with a product manager. And these two roles make engineering teams successful. So that's how I perceive this. And the answer to your question then would be the engineering manager is responsible for leading the engineers and also making sure that the technology is right. Responsibility is technology and engineers. And the product manager is responsible for the product direction, motivating the team and highlighting why something is important and determining in which direction to go. So product manager, what to do, engineering manager and engineering says how to do it.
How to do it.
But I know that you're using tech leads, and this is it becomes interesting.
It's a variation because it comes from a let's say from my experience when working with engineering teams that, as you said, the managerial aspect takes quite some time. You need to spend time in one-on-ones. You want to understand where the people you're responsible for are in their own career, junior, professional, senior, whatever, how you can support them to make them even more effective, because that's how you're contributing to the success of the team. That's already costing quite some time. I would say 40 to 50%. And the remaining time, I like my team leads to be normal contributors, individual contributors to the team. I don't want them to be also the brightest candle on the cake regarding on how to solve something or be an expert in a certain technology or being able to make architectural decisions at the same time. It puts them on a spot. And I don't like that. I rather see this as a duo. I have people that are really strong in technology, and I have people that are really strong they are really strong in managing, and I let them together be the leaders of the team. The accountability lies with the team lead. It has to be defined because if everyone's responsible, then no one is responsible. So there's an accountability that I'm putting on the team lead, and then the responsibility between these two topics, between these two roles. And then there's the product manager on top. So, and you could even add the designer so that we have the triangle between engineering and design and product maybe. And the one aspect of engineering has this sub-aspects of, okay, do I have the right staff? Do I have the right people? Do I have the right capacity? And the other one is, how are we solving it from a technology perspective?
Yeah,
it's a twist. I don't think that it's a conflict. It's more like a twist where I'm saying putting all of these responsibilities on one person could be quite cumbersome.
So I would agree in one area, which is that the team lead is not the brightest candle in the room and should not, and is not expected to be the brightest candle in the room. This team might have very senior engineers that are with the company for much longer than the team lead. So these people should be consulted. And in my case, this is then, I guess, very similar to the concept of your tech leads, which is then like a staff engineer or a very senior engineer that is then the person that really is being consulted and leads the technical area.
Right.
So the decisions ultimately have to be done by some person, or decisions have to be made by some person, which is the team lead. But ideally, this is done jointly with the team. And of course, if you have a senior person in the room that exactly knows how to solve a problem, you should listen, right?
Right.
So this is how it's done. And I know the concept of tech leads. I've never seen it in the companies I worked with, but I've always had this senior person in those teams. And I also try to have this triangle, as you said. So product manager, you have the team lead, and you have the designer kind of to lead the team, which is then Marty Kagan. That's another good book. All the books of Marty Kagan are worth reading. Inspire is one of, I think, ones that got stuck with me quite a lot. But yeah, that's maybe another area we should explore later.
We can talk about that at a different point.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the team lead, engineering manager, tech lead area.
Okay. So we're covering now, like what I understood from you is we're covering the responsibility, and you're saying, okay, technical responsibility and managerial responsibility is also covered, and you have created your career ladder. You have defined, depending on the size, depending on the needs that you have as your company, that you want to have this role and this role and this role. This, you have a head of, you have a director, and you have all of these things established.
Yeah.
Now what?
Now what? What do you mean, now what?
Yeah, what do you do with this? Like, I can tell you where I'm aiming for. The responsibility of making sure that you're promoting the right people to these roles is with the person that is doing the promotion.
That's interesting. We talked about this at the beginning.
What is a fallacy? What is a problem that normally happens, or not normally, but often happens? Who gets promoted?
Peter gets promoted, right? So the Peter principle. That's what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the Peter principle.
I like this quite a lot. Yeah, of course. But how do you make sure that you don't have the Peter principle at work in your company? So how do you determine that like your team lead, like a wonderful team lead, excels, and you're thinking, hey, that person could be a great director, leading like 5 teams in that area. So how do you do this?
The Peter principle, like maybe for those.
What's the Peter principle?
What's the Peter principle?
What's the Peter principle? So I think it says that like in companies, people are promoted up to the level they are not competent anymore.
Yeah, actually, incompetence. Yes, actually.
So you have, in the end, you have an organization where like each of the leaders is basically incompetent because they just got promoted and they can't handle the workload or the responsibility there.
And the concept that I understand behind that is that normally we are promoting the people that are excelling in their current role. Like we have 20 engineers. We need to have a team lead. Who do we pick? Well, the best engineer that we can see.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, because the skills that you need to excel in your promotion will not be the skills that brought you to this attention of, oh, who are we even considering for a promotion? So how do I do this? I look for already behaviors that I want to see in the role of the promotion that I'm looking at. So if people are already showing behavior of something that I need inside a team lead, although they are individual contributors, that's already a signal for me that this could be an interesting candidate for this. And then I would start conversations with these people. Where do you want to go with your career? Maybe they would even tell me themselves that they're more interested in the managerial part than the individual contributor part. So I'm very careful in figuring out on who I'm promoting. I'm not trying to promote the smartest person, because worst case, Peter principle comes in, and it's called the Peter principle not because the person that is being promoted is named Peter, but the person who invented
Thanks for clarifying
the principle. It's just to be clear, his last name is Peter. Interestingly enough, this book was written, I think 1969. The Peter principle, and it's very similar to, from the time that Conway's Law was also written, that we talked in our last episode.
Not much has changed, I guess.
It's very interesting. So how do I prevent it? I'm looking for behaviors that I want to see in the promotion. And I don't know, maybe you heard this sometime, that don't behave, or maybe in the time of a bank industry and insurance industry, like don't dress in the role that you're in, but dress for the role that you want to be in. It's a very simple oversimplification. Behave for the role that you want to be in. And I, as a manager, have the responsibility. And in the end, I'm actually also accountable if I promote people and they get like incompetent in the sense of they don't know how to be successful in their new role. That's on me. It's not on them that are not able to come out of. It's on me to figure out how can I support them so that they become successful. Maybe some kind of training, maybe a setting of expectation, maybe it's some mentoring, whatever needs to happen. I cannot expect to promote someone and that they excel at this with a beat of an eye.
That's right. You also told me another trick a long time ago. What you do to not see the Peter principle at work in your company, which is, I think you told me that you're using like interim roles or interim assignments. So
Right.
if you think that that team lead could be a great director of that business area, then you don't promote that person straight away, but you give that person that role, that responsibility, with a clear way back, so that you can, and also that person can evaluate whether it feels good. If the person performs, it's fun, and if it doesn't work, there's a clear way back, because that's the problem of the Peter principle. You promoted the person, and the person will lose his or her face when you get demoted. Right? That's a hard thing.
Right.
But not officially promoting someone, but just giving someone the interim title with like a clear message to the staff that, hey, we're doing this just on an interim way, and we don't know if this is the final solution. We're just trying this out in terms of organizational restructuring, blah, blah, blah. Then this is a very good way to check this out and see if it's working.
Right. In my 25 plus years of work experience, I've only seen it once that someone decided to get demoted.
Yeah, and then you let me go, right? So that was me? No,
that wasn't you. That was someone else. But the concept, I'm calling it acting. Like it's
acting. Yeah, that's what you said.
Let's talk about a team lead. We have an individual contributor who has shown interest and also behaviors that indicate that they could be a good team lead. I created a training. It's a 1 year long training, so a minimum 1 year, in which this person is taking on the acting role of team lead.
Wonderful.
And it allows them to keep their face, because it basically gives them a lifeline back into their old role, to save their face, as the Japanese say, I believe. And try out these new things, because how am I supposed to know if someone is really good in something new if I don't give them the chance to prove it? And one way of seeing this is by looking at their current behavior, but then maybe they're behaving like a team lead as an individual contributor because they're missing or lacking some formal mandate. They cannot really excel at this, so I need to give them the chance. So I need to promote them. I need to give them this acting team lead role, which is a temporary promotion. And everyone around them knows this. It's a signal, like we're trialing something out. And if it doesn't work, well, what we learned is something new, and we learned how not to do it.
Yeah, perfect. I think a couple of minutes ago, you also said something very interesting, which is very related to the levels and to the levels in your organization, which is the career ladder. I think, which as an organization, that's happening quite frequently, especially when organizations grow. There is not a good career framework or career ladder in place that supports these levels. But that's something that also you as a leader, as a CTO, have to make sure that this is like crystal clear. How do you determine that someone is a good CTO, that someone is a good director, that someone is a good team lead? So you have to write this down and make this very, very visible. Important for giving your staff direction, equally important for hiring someone new. Sometimes you don't have the perfect director in your group. Nobody wants the job, maybe. You need to hire someone. But then again, you have to be very, very clear on what you expect from the candidate.
Yes.
And therefore you need a career ladder.
Setting expectations.
Yeah, career framework, career ladder, super important, that then maps back to your levels.
I've noticed in the past that people are very quick to give feedback on like, oh, I need to give you feedback on this. And what they mean is actually they want to complain on something that I did or that someone did.
Do people complain what you did? You can
Well,
be very honest about this.
I can be honest about this. I'm not perfect. I try to be, but I know it's...
no, it's just joking around. Of course it happens.
But the tricky thing about feedback is you can only give feedback to things that you talked about before. So if you get a team lead, but you don't tell the team lead what you're expecting from the team lead to do, and this is equally relevant for any role, maybe it becomes more difficult the higher you go into the hierarchy because the responsibility grows, and maybe the flexibility on how to solve things becomes bigger. But if you don't set your expectations, I find it really, really hard to give feedback on something that you didn't talk about. Oh, I didn't think that you did this well, but we never talked about that this is part of my responsibility. Okay, now I'm telling you in the feedback. You don't want to have these conversations. You want to set the expectations at the very beginning as good as possible. And that's why the career framework and the career ladder is very important. And it also helps people understand if they are fit for a role. Like this is also something that the leadership pipeline is talking about.
Yeah.
That you want to ensure that people are able to learn new behaviors, because the successful behaviors that they had in their current role will not necessarily make them successful in their new role. If you are, for instance, the best engineer in the world and you know C++ inside out, and suddenly you're promoted to the team lead, the skills that you have for understanding how C++ works will help you 0%. Well, maybe 0.1%, because maybe there's something in C++, because C++ can do everything, that also helps you in the team leading a team. I'm joking, obviously. And this is something where setting expectations is so crucial.
Yeah, true. And this also makes it very visible that you have to have a career path for individual contributors as well. So this is where it becomes interesting. In former times, it was usually the case if you're an engineer, you're like junior engineer, mid-level engineer, senior engineer, and if you then want to earn more money basically or grow your career, you have to go into management.
Right.
And that's then exactly the problem, because if you're a good C++ engineer, you are not necessarily enjoy leading a team or not a good leader at all. And so what you have to have place, and what you have to also value inside your departments and your team or in your businesses, is having like a career path for very senior engineers that focus on writing code, or especially focus on not leading, but on all the other things that are very, very important for you.
Right. So, I do this. I do this in my places where I'm responsible. I actually have a split career ladder. So it starts off with the usual junior and mid and senior. And I've seen already like big tech companies that have a junior, and then they have a mid 1 and a mid 2 and a senior 1 and a senior 2 and a senior 3, whatever. But all of them are individual contributors, more or less. But then it's something where, from my perspective, it splits into like, okay, you need to make a decision. Do you want to, at some point, become a manager, like me, like I am, like maybe like you are?
Maybe.
Or do you want to actually excel on the technical aspects? And this is like then the staff engineer, the principal engineer, the technical fellow, like depending on how big your organizational structure is. And then this basically means you can, like, at least what I'm responsible, the salary bands that I created are equal. Like the tech lead and the team lead, they have the same salary band. The director and the principal engineer, they have the same salary band. And then it just differentiates between what do I expect from these people? What are they supposed to be doing? And that works really well.
Yeah. Another thing I'm curious about is, how do you manage the difference between roles and, let's say, career levels? Is this something you distinguish? So, for instance, maybe being a Scrum Master, that's kind of a role, but it might not be the level on your career framework. Or as a software engineer, you can, for instance, take up the role of a Scrum Master or of an Agile coach, but that's basically something else. It's a role with a role expectation versus a level that you have in your career framework. And this is a little bit fuzzy, of course. And also caveat, I usually try to not have roles, but really levels that then are very, so and also then the behaviors that are kind of similar across the different individual contributor and management levels.
Right. So I liked your example, because this is the way how I have seen many companies, many teams experimenting with, for instance, something new like a Scrum Master. Like if you're working on Scrum, I'm not a particularly a Scrum Master fan, but I understand that some people want to have this. And the way how they experiment with this is by handing this responsibility over to an individual contributor.
Yeah.
From my perspective, this is fine for the experimentation, but at some point, if it becomes something that takes, like, we know it's working and we benefit from it, I would rather create a separate, like, dedicated role for this. So I don't want to have like a split brain syndrome where the engineers that is also the Scrum Master needs to always jump between two different responsibilities and two different topics that they need to
I totally agree.
handle. For the team lead, we have the same thing, but I think both you and I are agreeing that from a team lead, someone who's still somewhat in the trenches, but somewhat also doing like the responsibility of the team leadership, that's okay. But the moment you get like one level higher, please don't write code. Please don't have any tickets ongoing, because you just become a bottleneck for everyone else around you. So I use this role concept actually for testing something. So before I introduced the new level, or the level of a principal engineer, because I didn't know if we needed that level, that career level, I experimented with a role. So I made a definition of the role. I handed over this role definition to some candidates that, from my perspective, had the potential to go in this. And for maybe a year or so, they were having this additional role. But once we understood that we really, really liked the benefit that we're getting from this additional role, we actually made it a separate level.
Wonderful. That's great. And that's also maybe a recommendation in general, if you are, as a company, if you want to get some hints how to define those roles or levels, then this the leadership pipeline book is very good, because it has very a lot of examples where they highlight the importance of those roles and which roles might be a good fit for your company as well, especially if you are an engineering organization. Very interesting. Lots of things you can copy and paste right away if you're missing this right now. That's something which was very helpful for me as well. A couple of smaller things, I guess, missing. What's the Dunning-Kruger effect, and how do you combat it?
Dunning-Kruger, it has something to do with the Peter principle. Let me put it very shortly. People who are promoted to a position of, let's say, incompetence, not that they decided to do that, someone else decided to promote them, but in the end they decided to accept it, they have a hard time understanding that they are maybe not delivering the best value. Let's be more honest, that they're delivering a shitty performance. Yeah. They rather have the opposite kind of impression, that they're delivering really good work and good results.
So for me, the Dunning-Kruger principle is it's amazing, because I always think I'm performing very well, but I just don't understand it myself because I'm so stupid. That's basically the case, but this is also the description of the Dunning-Kruger principle, right? So you are incompetent, but you are not stupid, but stupid.
Ignorant.
You don't even understand that you're incompetent.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Well, you get blindsided. Like it's not that the people that do this are idiots or something. It's just that they don't see it for whatever reason.
Yeah,
They don't see it.
that's the definition of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
And that's why it's so important that if you are the manager, the person responsible for these people, assuming that you're not a victim of the Dunning-Kruger effect, you have to be the one making maybe hard decisions, maybe talking with this person, maybe even from a positive perspective, helping them being successful.
Yeah, supporting them. But this is also like a leadership responsibility. You have to weed out the bad ones. And this is then an example where it simply doesn't work. And if people are not competent on the level they are working on right now, then you have to make hard decisions, because then your team doesn't work, doesn't perform. Your business ultimately will fail. Huge problem for everyone. So, and so Dunning-Kruger, and we have something else, which is the imposter syndrome, right?
You have the imposter syndrome?
I have all sorts of syndromes. It's like I don't know where to start, to be honest. But the imposter syndrome is, in the imposter syndrome, it's interesting because it tends to happen also in certain genders much more frequently than others. For instance, you have the imposter syndrome much more for females than for males.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
I think, it's very interesting. What does the imposter syndrome mean? It just means that you're always telling yourself, I'm not competent enough. So you're doing some great stuff, you're writing great code, but then you go home and tell yourself, you know what, I'm just the shittiest engineer of the whole world. Or I don't trust myself, these kind of issues.
Even worse, you get praised for the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, why do I deserve this?
Yes. And so that's a problem if you fall into this trap, because you're making yourself much smaller than you are. And it's also a problem if so the imposter syndrome is very relevant if it comes to candidate interviews. So if you have to interview for a new position and you're a victim of the imposter syndrome, if someone asks you, hey, we want to hire you for our company, what are your best projects in the last 10 years? Your first answer likely will be, yeah, I was just a total failure. I didn't have any good projects at all, which likely is not very true.
That's not
but
the best way for the interview to go.
This is your first tendency if you're fall into this trap. And what does this mean for you in a leadership position? Of course, you have to kind of see this. You have to coach and support that people, especially if you're a team lead, and to help them grow, because that's amazing. So many people are amazing that have these imposter syndromes, and you have to just help them. And what it also means is in those interview situations, people will be different, and you have to watch very carefully if someone kind of shortlists himself or the other way around. You also have those big mouths that always say, "Yeah, I did everything well." You have to sort this out as well. But also if other people that are very, very shy and don't really mention their successes, you have to watch out if that person is actually the main contributor of the whole team in the past, or was in the past.
I heard we in the software industry have overproportional amount of introverts.
Yes, introverts. That's another thing. Yeah, of course, might be. So I'm not a psychologist, of course, but actually have a minor degree in psychology.
You just remembered?
Many years ago, but I'm still, of course, not an expert in this area. But that's it's usually hard to define. But of course, you have to support these people that are very, very introvert and only focusing on themselves, and that's fine. But you have to manage people. There's one more thing, which is the opposite there in terms of management. If we are leaving a little bit levels now, but in some organizations you have crazy people. So there is this example of, I think, Dennis Rodman, like a famous basketball player. And so all the basketball players, they were supposed to be on time at the stadium using the bus that was provided to them. Dennis Rodman didn't do this. He just took his own car, he came late, wore different shoes, and it was a total mess. So, and you usually would say, okay, I don't accept this behavior because it's completely out of the line. We have agreements. We have to start at a certain time. But that person, like Dennis Rodman back then, was that good that they accepted this and kind of tried to manage him because he was so amazing. And so how would you manage this? This can happen on many different leadership levels. But if you have this crazy person that kind of uses swear words all the time, that's totally shitty to other people, and is so amazing because he has so much ownership and runs a whole business unit, and
I'm not accepting it.
You're not accepting it.
No, it's not. It's toxic and it's contagious.
Yep.
And I'm not a basketball manager, so I can understand why someone like Dennis Rodman was hired, and I mean, he was also doing publicity for them. So I think it's not what we normally have in software engineering. Software engineers are normally located somewhere in the basement, no sun, and like we don't need this. Like what we need is a trusting environment, an environment where we can openly talk about the problems that we have, so that we can approach them and we can solve them and we can improve and we can get better. And if there's someone in there that is in one way or the other toxic, claiming all of the glory for themselves or pointing to others when there's something bad ongoing, et cetera, that's not the kind of environment that I want to create. So I'm putting, let's say, the team fit over the capabilities that someone is bringing in. Because like the effect that someone can have like this, besides maybe the initial jump in productivity because suddenly we have an engineer that is able to produce a lot of things or maybe great quality and so on, is that in the end, other people will be leaving.
Yes, that's right.
So I'm hiring one and I'm losing three. So net worth is like -2, not working.
Yeah, that's true. So there's also a book called The No Asshole Rule that talks about this, also like a recommendation. I also recently read the book How Google Works by Eric Schmidt. And he says the opposite. He says it's your duty as manager to manage these glorious geniuses.
Okay.
And this is where it becomes interesting. And I think I might be guilty now, but we are leaving the area of levels and of organizational levels and so on.
I like that. No, it's. I think it's fitting very nicely in there. So. I haven't worked with glorious assholes yet. Glorious geniuses, you call them.
Yeah, I don't know how. I think you used the term glorious geniuses, but I mean, maybe.
I've worked with assholes so far.
Yeah, okay.
And unfortunately, some of them decided themselves to leave, and some of them I had to figure out a way on how I can protect the rest of the team. I was not always successful with this, so talking about being guilty of not always having good solutions. I think that's a different aspect. When we are creating a team structure or an environment that is following the money, as you said, or following the flow of the work, we need different capabilities. And I'm not talking about front end and back end. I'm talking about maybe the flow, the stream-aligned teams or the platform teams. And from my perspective, these geniuses that you have in mind that might have a problem interacting with people, we need to find the right home for them. You wouldn't put them normally in a stream-aligned team that needs to produce new features on a frequent basis.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe their home is much better in a complicated subsystem team where they can really go deep and really can excel in what we need from them.
Yeah.
And the amount of interactions that they have that with other teams maybe is proxied by their team lead.
Yeah.
That is a way how to approach that. I don't like building teams around people. I like building teams around the structure of the flow of the work that we need to do.
Where is the +1 button? There's the +1 button, right?
And I was thinking about a different archetype of, let's say, problematic person. Let's not talk about assholes, but like people that are creating maybe cringe moments or that are like verbally or like unintentionally hitting people in the face, like verbally, by something that they say, because they don't know how to say it differently. And the first thing is, where can I find the right home for them? And if the answer is actually there's no home for them because of toxic behavior, then I need to make a call. I cannot accept them being responsible for others to leave, because ultimately it will be my responsibility.
Yeah,
I'm the
that's
accountable
right.
person.
And this brings us back to leadership. From what you talked about, what would be your main takeaways now when we talk about leadership levels? What's the main takeaway, or what are the main takeaways?
There are quite a few, but you will help me with this. So one thing that I liked is that what you said is setting expectations. No matter how you're designing your leadership structure to look like, you need to be clear on what you're expecting from each level. I think that's a very strong statement here, because I've seen people not caring about this. Oh yeah, there's this role description, but I don't care about it anymore. And you now started, you're half a year into the job, and suddenly everything changes, and nobody tells you that expectations are changing. It's not working for me. That's one strong statement.
From phrasing this a little bit differently, so you have to be aware that there are different levels, and for each of the levels, you have to define what is expected of that level.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Another one is be cautious, and let's say be conscient about who you're picking for which leadership role.
Yeah.
Have a plan on because you know what you're expecting, you know what to look out for, and therefore you're able to help these people to grow into this new role. That's something that I also liked. And then I would even go so far as it's your account. You are accountable and responsible for making the people that you're promoting successful.
Yeah.
Just as much as the people that are in that role are responsible and accountable for it.
I totally agree. Or make the call if it's not working out at all.
And ideally, if you're building something like this, you have a lifeline back, because maybe this person was a really, really good person, and you don't want to lose them just because they failed in the new role that you put them in.
Yeah, I think from the concept we discussed, there is like a lot of new stuff that we should discuss in some upcoming sessions. Then from psychological traits to leadership traits, tips and trips around promotions and so on.
Yeah,
promoting in general, another big topic. Cool, but for the levels, I think it's a good takeaway.
Did I forget something?
I don't think so, to be honest. I would recommend reading the book, and no, I think it perfectly sums it up.
Which one? We talked about so many.
So the leadership pipeline book.
The leadership pipeline.
And the leadership pipeline book, it's called also leadership pipeline because the importance is that you, as a leader, you're also responsible for growing your new leaders, right? Another huge aspect, but I think we touched this as part of this.
Read the book. It's really good. We're not promoting the book. It's just like we like it so much.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of content in there.
No affiliate links yet. Cool.